food chains and food webs. Why do we need to eat? We eat so that we get energy into our bodies. Energy allows us to do things like move, play, dance, and other daily activities. A food chain shows how energy is moved throughout an ecosystem. It shows us where different living things or organisms get their energy. All living things need to eat, not just as humans. This includes plants and algae. Algae are plant-like organisms that live in either salt or fresh water. But they don't have mouths. How do they get their energy? Plants and algae are called producers and can make their own energy through a process called photosynthesis. In a marine ecosystem, tiny algae called phytoplankton and large algae like the bull kelp use sunlight to transform water and carbon dioxide into sugars and oxygen. Sugars are used for growth, and we use oxygen when we breathe. These producers make up the first level of a food chain. The food chain also includes consumers and decomposers. The second level of the food chain are consumers. Consumers are organisms that need to eat or consume other living things to get their energy. In a food chain, there are several levels of consumers. The first level of consumers are called primary consumers. They are plant and algae-eating herbivores. Zooplankton are primary consumers and are tiny microscopic animals that swim around in the water. After the primary consumers are the secondary consumers. These are animals that eat primary consumers and are typically larger. Herring are secondary consumers and will eat zooplankton. Tertiary consumers make up the next level of consumers. These are animals that eat the secondary consumers. Seals are tertiary consumers and will eat herring. Let's put the food chain together with what we know so far and see what it looks like. Energy from the sun goes to the producers, algae like the bull kelp and phytoplankton. When zooplankton, the primary consumer, eat the phytoplankton, energy is transferred from the producer to the primary consumer. Energy continues to flow through the ecosystem as the herring eat the zooplankton, and energy is transferred from the primary to the secondary consumers. Energy from the secondary consumer is transferred to the tertiary consumers when the seals eat the herring. Now that we see how energy is made at the bottom of the food chain with producers, and how that energy is transferred throughout the ecosystem by consumers, what do you think the role of a decomposer might be? Decomposers are bacteria or fungi that breaks down dead and or decaying organic matter into nutrients. Their job is to recycle these nutrients back into the ecosystem for producers like phytoplankton to use for their growth. Let's put the food chain together again. Producers like algae are eaten by primary consumers like zooplankton, which are then eaten by secondary consumers like herring, which are then eaten by the tertiary consumers, the seals. Decomposers recycle nutrients from every single one of these levels back into the ecosystem to be used again. A quick note about the term algae. Algae is the umbrella term for all marine plant-like organisms. We use the term seaweed to describe large algae. Pictured here are kelp, another term we use to describe specifically brown algae. Let us know in the comments if you want a video all about algae. So far, we've only talked about food chains, but what about a food web? Animals eat a variety of different foods. A food web shows all of the possible food choices an organism might have in their ecosystem. For example, phytoplankton are eaten by not only zooplankton, but also oysters and crabs. Crabs eat phyto and zooplankton, but will also snack on the oysters. Notice how the energy from every single organism here flows back to the bacteria. Nutrients from all living things are recycled by decomposers to be used again and again.
In summary, a food chain shows how energy is transferred throughout the ecosystem, starting at the producers, which are organisms like the bulk kelp and phytoplankton. They can create their own energy through a process called photosynthesis. These organisms are eaten by consumers, which are organisms or animals that need to eat something else to get energy. Consumers are animals like the tiny little zooplankton, herring or other fish, seals, or other marine mammals. And lastly, in the food chain, we talked about decomposers, bacteria. Their job is to recycle all of that energy back into the ecosystem to be used again. A food web is a combination of all the possible food chains you can find in an ecosystem because animals don't just eat one type of food. For example, crabs in an ecosystem will eat zooplankton, but they will also eat mussels. And you know what? Mussels also eat zooplankton. Thanks for tuning in today for my food chain and food web talk. I hope you enjoyed it, and I want to see your creation of a food chain. Create a food chain. You can draw it, you can do an interpretive dance, or even go out to the beach and take pictures of different animals and construct your own food chain. Share it with us on Facebook and Instagram and tag us at Seaquaria _Ocean _Education and hashtag Seaquaria Learning. Toodaloo!